Good evening, crypto miners. Good evening, everyone. And welcome to our Twitter space. Today, I'm very excited to bring up someone from nearprotocol and Near Foundations. Marieke, I see you're in here. Let's give you access to talk as well. You have to, I think, ask to talk or approve something.
Hello, hi, hello. Yes, does it work?
There you go. Hi, Marieke. Welcome to Crypto Miners.
Hi everyone.
Hi, welcome. So, my name is Mary, and I also want to remind everyone that we do not give any financial advice during this session, but we wish to give you more knowledge about this project and help you a bit on your way in your own research. So do your own research, guys. But with that said, Marieke, it's so lovely to have you here. I've heard so much about Near Protocol, and I look forward so much to hear more, even more from you now. So welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and great to be here. And looking forward to everybody's questions and to share more about near protocol and I guess 2023 trends, right? Because we're just at the start of a new year.
Yes. Let's see what this year has in store for us. Last year didn't really go that well in the end, maybe. There was so much happening, but it can always be better now, right? So,
Indeed.
so who are you, Marieke? You are the CEO of Near Foundation. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey in crypto so far? And
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with so I'm French to set the ground a little bit, and if you find I have a funny accent, that's where it's come from. I started dipping my toes in crypto first end of 2015, and I worked for Circle as their managing director for Europe, basically looking at expanding all the different products that Circle had across the European territory. And then I became the chief marketing officer for Circle. And I left in 2019. So I've seen already a first downturn and things changing quite drastically. Then I joined a bank. So I worked for a much more traditional business, NatWest. And within that bank, I was the CEO of a pure digital play, which was an independent digital bank, which got me, really to also see the other side of actually the financial industry. And then almost a little bit over a year ago, the Near team reached out because they were looking for someone to lead their foundation, the Near Foundation, which is what I do today. And when the Near team reached out, I had actually never heard of Near as a technology and as a protocol. And I was honestly blown away because, back in the day when I was working at Circle, we were talking already about tokenization of everything and scalability and usability and all of that. But the technology was not there to make it happen. And with Near, it's there. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that, but it's, layer one
yeah, for
protocol.
sure.
It's proof of stake and it's very, very usable. And we are therefore able to bring to life real use cases. So so that's in a nutshell.
Great. Yeah, I heard also before I heard about Near, I didn't know what it was, obviously. But when I read about it, I was also a little bit blown away. It seems to be very like easy to understand for newbies and people maybe who aren't that into development or technical things like me. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So you are in the Near Foundations, right? The CEO for Near Foundations. And what kind of role does the foundation have to the Near to the project?
Yeah, great
What's your
questions. What's the
main
mandate?
thing that you do?
What's the mandate? So the Near Foundation is a Swiss not-for-profit, and the role of the foundation is actually to help kickstart the growth of the ecosystem so that the ecosystem can become self-sustainable. And so with that said, what it means is that the role of the foundation over time decreases. And so our goal and the way we think is actually how can we serve the ecosystem so that the ecosystem becomes self-sustainable on its own. And therefore we do three things. So number one, we actually exist to help raise awareness of Near. So what is Near? What is the Near protocol? But also what is it that's being built on Near, and why is Near a great platform? Number two, we are here to help support the ecosystem. And so that very often means actually routing people through the ecosystem. So for example, we have a ton of projects who might need investment, and we have a lot of backers and investors who invest on Near projects. And so routing people through that, but sometimes routing people can mean having finding legal advice within the ecosystem. Who are the experts and the professionals that can help on that? So in a way, it's like, it's the basis for an accelerator, which we might talk about a bit more later. And then the third part is actually, as part of our mandate, is making sure that in helping the ecosystem get to where it needs to be self-sustained, it's helping through this decentralized governance, right? So how do we actually help, maybe seed that or actually encourage that to make sure that we can make ourselves, over time, decreasing, but also obviously redundant. So that's in a nutshell what the foundation does. And so we are, if you wish, one of the pebble of an ecosystem that is comprised of, actually over 1,000 projects and hundreds of DAOs and millions of users.
Yeah, nice. You have a big goal, right?
Yes.
Big vision. I like that.
For 2023, we're very focused on active users, and so for 2023, we would like to get to 10 million monthly active users, and today we are at roughly 600,000 monthly active users, which is already, it's Near is actually one of the chain on which you have most transactions and active engaged users. We've always been very focused on that rather than metrics such as TVL that might not always say the truth about how much a chain is actually being used.
And Near protocol is its own blockchain, layer 1, right? You're not built on top of anyone else, like.
Correct. So Near is its own layer 1 protocol, proof of stake, fully sharded. And for, to build on top of other things, we have an EVM, which is called Aurora. And so therefore, what that means is that anything that is actually being built already on Ethereum can be brought to Near without having to change the code, because that's the beauty of it via the EVM.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. So every protocol or every project on Ethereum can adopt Near and be one part of Near as well without changing their code.
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's good. Mm-hmm. So what is Near then? If you met me in an elevator, what would you quickly explain to me about Near?
Yeah, so
not too quick.
So usually, it depends, and I get that question a lot. But it depends also a lot, I would say, on the background of the person. Because for someone who doesn't necessarily know a lot about blockchain, what I would say is that Near is actually additional infrastructure built on top of the internet to transform the use cases and how we can actually give back ownership of assets to creators and to entrepreneurs. But if I met, the crowd that we have here, and I know you guys are all, if you're on Crypto Miners podcast, about crypto. So what I would say is that Near is actually it's the blockchain operating system. And so what is in a blockchain operating system? It's a different number of things. Number one, there's actually the underlying Near protocol, which is the layer 1 we were talking about, and number two, actually built on that protocol, you have a bunch of infrastructure and integrations, but obviously over time you also have, and that's the thing that we're actually actively working on, what we call an operating system, which is the entry door to actually making sure that anyone can access easily any apps and dApps anywhere. So yeah, that's how I would pitch it, and it's obviously an ecosystem of thousands of projects that continuously build on, some small, some very large. we do have some very strong partnerships with folks like, for example, Sweatcoin, which has 150 million users, but also CellGP, which is a sports racing competition, sailing. So yeah, that's how I would start, and then I would just try to figure out, what do you want to know more about?
Yeah, let's try and figure that out because I want to know everything. But but projects who come to you, they can use your ecosystem and build without even telling you, right? It's
Correct.
an open source, so you can just go there and you also on your webpage, I think you have lots of good guides and help to help educate people about what near protocol is and how it works and what it can be used for. So I'll encourage people in here who wants to know that. You can also read that on the web page if you haven't already. And so tell us more about the team also behind Near Protocol. When did it start and who started it and why? What kind of problem did you see or was seen
Yes.
to
Yeah. So actually,
start it,
so the background of the founders of Near is actually fascinating. So Alex and Ilya, the two founders of the Near protocol, actually both have a background in AI, which as we hear a lot about ChatGPT and all that, a lot of their contributions have been towards AI in the world. And so when they actually started in 2018, the first path that they had at was actually working on an AI project, which was called Near, because the idea was like, singularity is near. So that's why Near, the name is like it's almost here. It's very near. And the idea of the first
oh, that's smart.
yeah, and the idea of the first project was to say, well, imagine an AI that can self-build all the apps that are needed in the world. And so to do that, they had a lot of different developers and coders all around the world. And very pragmatically, they needed to pay those developers and coders around the world. And so they had heard about crypto and they say, well, rather than having to do tons of small micropayment bank transfers, which are going to be impossible, let's use crypto to pay all the developers and the students that are engaged on our project around the world. And they very quickly realized that it was completely impossible. It was unusable. It was super slow. It was extremely expensive to actually use any crypto basically to send transactions from one side of the planet to the other side of the planet. And so then they say, wait, hang on, there's a real problem there to solve. And they went and they interviewed all the layer one and crypto project you can think of. And actually on YouTube, if you go on the Near YouTube portal, you'll find the whiteboard series, which is fascinating to see. And they went and they interviewed all those different projects and they basically got in very deep in terms of technology to try to understand how is everything built. Like, for example, how is, other projects like Solana and Ethereum and all of that. They just quizzed everybody to say, like, how are you built? Why is your consensus mechanism better and how are you going to solve problem? And from that, they actually took the best bits and the best ideas of everything and they built Near. And so the
Smart.
very smart, because then that's why also, when we look at the development and where the underlying technology of Near is at, it's still years in advance on anything that is out there, thanks to actually having taken bits and bobs of everything. And not only that, but any change to the protocol itself can happen without hindering whatever projects is already built on top or whatever user experience is there. So yeah, that's how it started.
Nice, great story. And also about the name, I think. I like that. Near.
Yeah.
It's near now. We're here soon. It's near. So so how is it managed now? I mean, it's gonna be, you said like free. It's like a DAO or community owned, but is it that already or who has the keys to the project right now?
Well, so it's already very decentralized, right? And if you think of what is decentralization, there is actually different pillars to decentralization. Number one, there's actually from a technology validator perspective, how is the decentralization happening? And on that, there's already hundreds of validators. So that's already technologically very decentralized. Then if you think in terms of actually number of projects that are being built and where is the knowledge from a decentralization perspective. It's over 1,000 different projects, some small, some big, some in DeFi, some in NFT, some in like lots of different areas. So from that perspective, also it's already very decentralized. From actually a finance and funding perspective, same again. We've been on 2022 on a journey in the past to actually have hubs and different, so we call them hubs, and for us hubs are two different things. One, ecosystem fund hubs. So in the near ecosystem you have ecosystem eco funds such as, for example, MetaWeb and Lyric, who are like prone to having their own thesis and actually going after projects that want to build on Near and basically providing them capital. In a similar way, we also have a lot of backers in our network who are, who see projects and who can also seed and further fund things that are actually on there. So that would be the part of like, how do you decentralize access to capital? And that being said, we still have actually a lot of funding that is in the foundation. And so we've been, in the community, there's a group of people who are actually working on how do you further decentralize the governance, what's actually the governance, and how do you have DAOs that are basically specifically focused on certain areas that the ecosystem need, and therefore have full autonomy on distribution of funding. So I would say that is, going to be an ongoing, continuous focus for 2023. But the reality is that it's a journey. When I look at where we were a year ago versus where we are today and where we want to go towards 2023. So to your question, who's got the keys? It's actually already, thousands of different people and places. And to me, it always depends on like which aspect are you thinking of and looking at. And getting to autonomous decentralization is actually managing all those different things in a coordinated fashion.
Nice. And I read somewhere also that you have a pretty simple way for anyone with just a computer to join this. I don't know if you call it nodes or like to help with the
validators. Well, so what you can already do.
Yeah, validate.
Exactly. Well, what anyone can already do, but it's more you can stake. And so if you stake, let's say you own some Near, and by staking your Nears, actually you already start becoming a participant in the ecosystem, and therefore the staking of your Near helps secure the ecosystem, but also helps provide you rewards for doing that. And obviously, because we are as we actually continuously grow, it becomes lower and lower amounts that you need to become your own validator. Over time, more and more people can actually become their own validators, right? So it means that literally just with a computer and an amount of Near that is smaller and smaller over time, you can become your own validator. But I think the beauty of that is that you can, even as an individual with a couple of a very small amount, you can already start participating in the ecosystem and therefore help secure the whole network.
And is it if you use your own wallet, the nearprotocol wallet, is it automatically staked, or did I read that somewhere else?
Well, no, it's not. So you need to actually. So if you go on wallet.near.org, then you actually need to decide if you want to stake your Near.
Okay.
Yeah, and then again, like, because you mentioned something important at the beginning, you said like anyone anywhere can actually build on the protocol because it's open source, and you're absolutely right. There is also like a lot of other wallets that are basically accessible within the ecosystem, and so depending on how they are configured, then you can basically choose which validator. Some of them might already have some proposed validators underneath.
And you talked before about funding, and if I have a project, let's say I want to start the Mary token, and can I come to you and I don't have any money to do that, but I have a really great idea with great utility and I want to build on Near. I can come to the foundation and seek funds.
So there's a couple of.
Can I be in an incubation?
Yeah.
Do you have incubation?
So yes, and we're developing what we call an accelerator. So maybe a bit of history there, and I think quite a few crypto projects might have been on a similar road. But In 2022, we did have actually a grant program, which was extremely successful. But what we realized is that it's not just about giving grants. It's actually about giving also like the advice and the connections and basically the package of what is needed for projects to be successful. So today, the way it works is that if you're actually looking for funding and you have a great idea, well, the first question is actually, what is your great idea? Is it a marketing idea? Is it actually more creative? Let's say you want to create NFT type idea, or is it actually a developer, like you have an idea for developing a piece of code or something that you think would be of added value to the Near network, or is it actually a company, like a startup, a project idea? Depending on those four different roads, then you have four different entry points. So if your idea is much more marketing related, then we have a marketing DAO that basically can help fund your idea. And then if it's more creative, we have a creative DAO. If it's developer, we actually have a dev DAO, which has like tons of ideas, and it's a really good for any developers out there. It's actually a really good way to engage and to participate. And then if you're more startup, then we are setting up this startup DAO, which then leads into an incubator, which is much more around, okay, you're actually very strong, but maybe you need help in terms of what are the tokenomics of your project, or maybe you need help because actually you have an MVP and then you need to get access to your next round of funding. And again, here we can route and make and give you access to relevant connections.
And who are we then? How big is this team that can help me develop or launch my project?
The foundation today is approximately a total of 70 people. And so within the accelerator part, it's roughly a team of 10, but then that team relies actually on quite a lot of external, let's call them, not necessarily supplier might not be the right word, but external, projects or teams within the ecosystem who have the right knowledge. So for example, let's say you need help with on legal. Well, we have, within the ecosystem, a team that's completely independent, which is called legal nodes, and they would be able to help. Let's say you need help with marketing. We have a team called Nearweek, and they can actually help with like newsletter and content, and they can help with a lot of that. So, it's a super small team, but that then has access and a network of lots of different things that continuously get built within the ecosystem.
And how do they get paid then, these people?
You mean with the folks who are in the ecosystem? Yeah,
No, the people who helps me then.
The people who help you.
If I'm in the incubation program, it's for free for me, right? Because you like my idea or something, it can help grow the near
so it can
ecosystem.
Yes, so there's different models there. Sometimes it can be for equity, it can be for part token swap. Sometimes it can be for just helping for for good and for nothing. It really depends.
Yeah, it's individual, you can say.
Correct.
Then. Depending. Okay, cool. And you said also before that the foundation is there to, one of your tasks or what you want to do is to raise awareness about Near. And I want to know how you do that. What's your main target, or do you have do you want it to go out to everyone, or who's the main end user or the customer for Near protocol?
Yeah, a great question. So they're different, and that's also the complexity, right? They're actually different, let's call it end users of Near protocol. So if you think of actually developers are one community on its own, and we have a DevRel team which is actually focused on that, which is closest to actually the core protocol builders. So that's one element, and like the go-to-market for developer is one thing on its own. But then if you think of actually mainstream, because we believe in actually mainstream adoption. Well, how do you get mainstream adoption? You get mainstream adoption by having real world use cases, because it's not just for example, if I think of end users, they don't care if it's, built on blockchain, and even less if it's actually built on Near. What they want is actually
which layer.
exactly
Layer 1 or 2.
yeah, they're like, oh, whatever, what does it do, right? And so for that, raising awareness for end users mean actually bringing the right partnership, building those partnerships to real use cases, and then talking about those partnerships, which is then goes into PR activities. So very concretely, for example, when we work with Sweatcoin, which has over 150 million users around the world, well, we do a couple of things. One, we actually build the tech and integrate with them, and then when that's actually ready and usable, we put the technology in people's hands, and we can talk about it in the press and in different places, and that helps raise the profile, and therefore the share of voice of Near, and Near becomes more known, and therefore we have the next partnership, which is easier to get to, and so on and so forth. So that's how we think about awareness. The one moment that brings everybody and every participant in the Near ecosystem, whether it's developers, partners, startup entrepreneurs, or actually backers who are interested in investing in projects, is actually our flagship conference, which is called NearCon. So the last one was in September in Portugal. We had over 3,000 people. It was actually a very very cool and really really great event. But that's also one thing that's under the remit of the foundation, is having those flagship events to have the entire community come together.
And do you also rely on your communities then? Because I mean, as a community can be very, very, very important, because they spread the word, right, about good stuff.
Yeah, correct.
And do they get some reward for doing that, or do you have like competitions or?
Well, so there is actually back again to the marketing DAO and the creative DAO. Some of those DAO might actually decide that yes, there is actually great communities that should be rewarded and empowered to do that. So that's how it's actually done. I would say from a foundation perspective, the type of marketing and community building that we do, some might say is actually much more traditional. So for example, we do look at Twitter followership and engagement on that, and what are the AMAs, and what is actually the content that we create that actually helps create a cohesive story on everything. But then yes, to your point, it's super important to have community and an engaged community, and to also have a way to incentivize, but also reward and make people feel part of the story. And the way we do that is via our marketing DAO.
Yeah, and going back to the DAOs, you said you have many different DAOs. That's the first time I've ever hear that, I think, from a project. Usually they try to build one DAO and to help with all the questions. And there are also some difficulties with DAOs. Who is the biggest holder? Do they have the real say, or But you talked about 4 different DAOs with these. I don't exactly remember of what.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mentioned. Yeah.
And now you're talking about the marketing DAO. And how many DAOs are you having? And if I own some Near tokens, can I be part of all the DAOs then? And is it a minimum amount of Near that I have to hold to be part of the DAOs?
Yeah, so great question. And actually, you're making me realize that approach might be quite distinct. But so for Near, actually community engagement and community building, very often what we see, and the name of it has evolved, but it started first with guilds. So folks were getting around together as guilds of like people who had common interest and therefore wanted to get together and put some of their Near together and say, well, we care about that thing, and therefore that's how as a group we're going to self-organize. What we've seen over time is actually that rather than having hundreds of different guilds that we're all trying to go into lots of different directions and sometimes similar directions, and therefore it was actually quite difficult for anyone entering the entering the near ecosystem to figure out, well, where do I go? Like, how do I even filter which guild or DAO can I participate in? And so what we have witnessed is over time actually this more rationalization, and the 4 different DAOs that we have now is marketing, creative, developer, and for startups. And when you look at that, actually having those 4 different entry points seems to cover pretty much anything and everything that's needed. Now, because again, it's an open source protocol, it doesn't mean that they might not be a second developer DAO, right? And because it's completely it's free for anyone to do that, and there might be another group or team that's coming together and saying, hey, you know what, we think we can also help contribute, and we want to get together, and that's how we basically are going to do it. So yeah, and to your question, if you do have near tokens and you want to participate, so different DAOs have different criteria, different governance also. So they all they define that in whatever way they think. And I think it's actually great to have different models for also experimenting, right? Like what's because very often
it seems big. Yeah, it seems like a huge organization then that you're building, like pretty big, and you're thinking big.
Yeah, we're definitely thinking big and sustainable. And for me, the important thing is all those experiments are really important, because over time, if you want a community that self-organize itself, it's somewhere it needs to have this generation of, well, if you have access to funding, how do you distribute that? Like, how do you actually have others participate in a way that is actually transparent and open and fair, and so on and so forth. It's a very complex problem. So we think definitely tens of millions of users. It needs to be big.
Yeah, I mean it's not easy to get people to think the same things.
Yes.
When there are 10 people, there are 10 different opinions usually. So it's like it's not super easy, I think, to handle with DAOs, but it sounds very good, and I think it's we don't really know yet if it's going to work or how it's going to work, because it's quite new, right?
Yeah,
We
I
haven't
think
really
the
done.
big question is, how do humans self-organize? And I think you
Yeah.
nailed it, because you said as soon as you have 10 people, then 10 people have 10 different ideas, and 10 different, even like the words we say are interpreted a different way. So it's exactly that. But
Yeah.
and yet it doesn't mean that there isn't a way where anyone anywhere can come, participate, feel heard, and find their path. And so yeah, but it's indeed all of that is ongoing, continuous experiment, and we are seeing stuff that is actually very encouraging. In particular, I mentioned it, but I think the DevDAO, which is super recent, that it started before the end of last year, the progress that DAO is making, and how they're leveraging every tool to bring a lot of backlog and transparency, and I'm really impressed with that. And so I think it's really great to have projects like that, spearheading in the ecosystem.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. So you said in the beginning also that you think big, and you are aiming this year to go from 600,000 users to 10 million, you said, I think, which is quite a jump.
Yeah.
But I mean, if it starts growing, it can really go quickly, right? So what, this is 1 year. So where do you see yourself? I usually ask this question at the end, but where is near in like 5 years or 3 to 5 years?
Amazing question. So, in 3 to 5 years, so the bigger vision we have for how things are actually panning out is, if you look at just the blockchain Web3 space in general, it still pretty much is, it's not fully usable, right? So this complete usability and actually a place where mass adoption can really and will have happened is definitely very much needed. And when I look at what we have with Near, which is a technology that can really scale, a technology that is actually seamlessly usable from, our wallets to actually getting on DAOs, but also like when we integrate with partners like, CellGP or Sweat or Google and so on and so forth, it's very usable. Like we don't need a whole manual for people to integrate with that. When I look at those pillars, what it tells me is that in 3 to 5 years, Near is the de facto blockchain operating system. And what that means concretely is that, dApps and apps are seamlessly being built on. And we actually are in a world where we don't need to explain what is a layer one and what is middleware, but we are in a world where if you imagine, a completely revamped way of interacting with social media, well, all of that is actually powered and built on and with Near technology. And if in 1 year it's 10 million users, then we get to, and that's the very big hairy goal that we have. But by 2025, billions of users who actually are now fully in control of their data, the content that they create through this blockchain operating system.
And we all know that it's not only Near out there who's trying to achieve this. There are others as well. So what does your project more unique, or why do you think you can be the one who get there, or be the leading blockchain in the future?
Yeah, great and great question. And I think I would go back to in particular the market we are in right now. There's a couple of fundamentals that are actually really important. So number one is, of course, having big vision and a very ambitious mission to want to get to something that is big and self-sustainable. But very importantly, having a technology that underlies that will scale and continue to evolve, a technology that is usable. Having amazing people and talent, and when I look across the Near ecosystem, I'm blown away by the folks that are here today, the folks that are coming in. It's absolutely phenomenal. So it's great tech, fantastic talent, and the last piece is actually also having the right amount of funding to go through the market we're in, but also be able to continuously develop what's needed next to actually make the progress that are needed. And so, the Near protocol and foundation raised $500 million earlier last year, and we've been extremely conservative through the whole saga that we actually saw last year. And so I think that will help. So what it means that, we have very strong vision, mission, and the fundamental pillars and underlying key elements that are needed to actually, continuously make progress, but not even just progress, but aggressively grow to achieve what we envision.
And you also make use of this bear market or are you hurting from the bear market, or how does it look for you?
So Near was actually built in the last bear market in 2018, and so the founders actually built when everybody was basically fleeing the crypto space. And here's also the other thing: we are actually better operators in a bear market than we are in a bull market, because the Near community is very much a community of builders, and it's ingrained into everything that is done. So it's quite and sometimes for our own at our own detriment, but it's a very builder focused, deliver, and not we're not shouting too much above the roof, which we should do more. but so I think it's good for us to be in that time. Now, obviously, what's not good and what very often worries me is more the impact on the industry in general, because what we've seen in particular towards the end of 2022 has a reputational impact for all of us. It has also of course, moral, it's when you see that happen to your entire industry, how do you keep up the morale of the teams, and how do you continuously recruit and attract talent, and when we talk to partners, how do we make sure that they don't associate Near with the whole saga of everything that's happening out there. So my heart goes to all of us that are continuously building in that space. And I think it's going to, we're all going to need to be very resilient to continue building. But again, I think bear markets are very good for focusing rather than having this constant FOMO of, are we missing out? And so it's good to be heads down.
Yeah, you're talking to the FOMO fairy here, so. Anyway, I mean, these all the bad things that happen, I think it's both good and bad actually, because if you see very well, harsh on it, maybe all news about something is news, so people get awareness, they now more people are aware about crypto than before this happened, because it reaches the big news, the mainstream media and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
but I agree. But on the other hand, how many of us around holiday period had the conversation with the parents or the family saying, "So you work in crypto?"
yeah.
And I'm like, so I feel, but you're right. It's like it's very frontline, and it's also an opportunity for all the builders out there and all those who believe in, because I really believe in this technology, and in particular, of course, what we are building at Near, but the fundamental principles of what Web3 and blockchain deliver are needed, and they can help us solve some of the largest and biggest problems
Yeah.
that we have as a society. And so, we need to stick to that and continue building and continue delivering on that.
Yeah. And I mean, it comes in stages, right? Now people are more scared, but they are more aware.
Yeah.
And now we have to turn around there and show that not every project is like a scam, but
yeah, and I think
we have lots of work to do still.
and I'm really sure we can, and that's where the proof is in the pudding, as the say goes, because then by delivering real world use cases, and I'm talking here not just headlines, right, but like really putting the work in it and delivering real use cases, that's how, and then we start showing that yes, it works, and yes, it's seamless, and yes, it can do this, and so yeah.
And we are still early with that, because it has just started to make use of crypto, I think, for people, for real use case, as you say. So it's an interesting time for us who are already a little bit aware and in this space, I think, to see what's going to happen and how fast this mass adoption will actually happen. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And you mean that Near is going to play a big part or big role in this?
Yeah, I mean,
In this event.
my cheesy tagline is the future is near. So there you go.
The future
The
is
future
near.
is near. But for us, it's really like we are here to stay, here to build, and obviously we've seen tremendous progress on real life use cases, and we have many more that are coming in the pipeline. All of that is super exciting, right? So when we continue to focus on that and look at that. And of course, who knows what 2022 will throw at us all as an industry, but having the right fundamentals in place, I believe, is absolutely critical. And when I look at the underlying technology, the amount of talent and the building blocks, the PCs, and also the available capital that we have across the entire ecosystem, then I'm extremely hopeful for Near to continue and for the future to be near.
The future is near. I love that. So how I'm curious how you're gonna actually try and achieve this big jump this year then, with all this baggage that we have now in crypto, and so many people know that are in crypto already. We know about Ethereum and Binance, obviously, are the big ones. How are you gonna like take some shares from them and reach the 10 million? Is that going to be new users, or
yeah, great question.
both new and old
It's an
users?
excellent question. So look, one of the things also, I think, as an industry where we don't do ourselves a favor is that if we all compete against each other in this still small pond we're in, then it's a lose-lose, right? Because actually the number of users in Web3 or in crypto in total yes, it's in the hundreds of millions, but it's not that big compared to like the total target and reachable audience. So our big belief is actually in bringing Web2 to Web3. And so how do you do that? Well, there's a couple of ways, but one in particular, which is through partnerships, and helping actually bring, projects that are already very successful in Web2, but that are looking for, what is their Web3 platform and how do they get on that? And again, here what we've seen and what we're witnessing is that on that, unless you have a technology that can scale, can deliver, and is really usable, then unless you have that, all you're going to have is a headline. And headlines are great because then they can create a bit of FOMO. But at the end of the day, the partners they need something that will really move forward. And so for us to get to those 10 millions of users, strategic partnership and bringing Web2 to Web3 is fundamental. We are seeing a lot of appetite in everything that's related to sports, entertainment, and in particular loyalty. And then the other part, because that's more relying on businesses that already exist, but the other part is actually enabling and empowering everything that's related to grassroots, right? So we talked about empowering the community through the different DAOs and therefore entry doors that we have, but also the accelerator. And so how can we actually help route the startups and the projects so that they get the best chance and the best shot at going through that? So that's roughly how we think about that. We released just before Christmas. I mean, for if there are folks here who want to know more, but on our blog there is a blog post that actually articulates that strategy in terms of like how do we actually get to those tens of millions of users, and what does it mean from where we are today.
So it's a real achievable goal, you mean? It's not like aim for the stars and reach to the treetops. It's you are going to reach there. That's what you really try.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I think goals are great for one, galvanizing people behind something, but if they're too far stretched, then nobody's going to believe you, right? But when we look at that, we really think it's actually possible. And even this year, when we look at where we started to where we got, it's pretty. It's extremely impressive. So, again, delivering, focusing on making it happen. I think we have all the ingredients to do that. Of course, it's going to be a stretch, but if it's not, then it's, what's the point?
Yeah, you're gonna try hard. That's good. Yeah, I wish you best of luck to that. I want to talk about this special thing that you have, that instead of wallet addresses, you have like the normal that we're used to, the 0x blah 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 wallet address, like so many numbers that you can't really remember it, or you can't use it very quickly. If you don't have it, you have to like check every number so it doesn't go wrong, You have something else.
Yeah.
You can have a name, or can you tell us more about that? How
Absolutely.
works?
But that goes into the philosophy of how and when Near was built. So on Near, you have actually human readable addresses. So it means that from the start, you can actually have, for you, it would be Mary.near wallet address, and for me, Marik.near wallet address. But you can have things that you can actually really relate to, which, is important, because if we think usability, then to your point, if you have like the 0, 1x, whatever, then it's not readable. And then even when we look at it, we're like, oh, wait, which wallet was that on? Was it this one as well? So that's part of the whole usability philosophy. Now, I will go even one step further. The other thing we have, which is very powerful, in particular for our partners, is that you can have, let's say we work with Nike. We can have a .Nike address. So for example, Nike could be creating their own app. And then in their app, they create, now you can create a Mary.Nike address, which becomes your crypto wallet. And then it's completely, you don't need to know that it's actually on Near, and it works seamlessly. It's embedded into the Nike app, and Nike are very happy because it's a .Nike domain that therefore gives them more brand recognition. And within that, they could create actually their Nike token and they can actually have all of that powered on Near technology. So yeah, we have stuff like that that makes it very usable for users. And then I would link that also, for developers, we also focus a lot on usability. So we mentioned earlier at the beginning of the AMA that if any Ethereum application are developed through our EVM, which is Aurora, you can bring the code and actually benefit from all the low fees and speed of Near. But on Near, you can also write directly code in JavaScript. So it's not only Rust or Solidity, but you also have JavaScript, and we're continuously adding more and more different languages. That also goes to usability, right? So how do you make it seamless so that any coder anywhere can actually build and participate, but then also like any user can, not have to remember like 10, 12 digits, and rather know their name with .near address.
Yeah, I think you're pretty alone to have JavaScript as coding language.
Yes, I think so too. And it's why that's interesting. That's very interesting because if you look at back again to the pool, the addressable market, if you look at Rust and Solidity, the total size of Rust and Solidity number of coders, it's like maybe hundreds of thousands. I think I looked up the number once. It's like if you sum up everything, it's probably 200,000 developers. So that's not a lot, right? Like it's actually a very small market. Now JavaScript, it's tens of millions of people who actually know JavaScript.
Yeah, exactly.
And so then you can again, if you think of, well, how do you get to mass adoption? You need more openness, inclusion, and more people to be able to participate. And that's a way also to do that, is to have languages that are, the purist coders will say not as great, but yet, maybe more accessible, and therefore more people can actually participate.
Yeah. And I think when I started with crypto, it's very complicated, and it's like so much new stuff that you have to learn, and half of the people, or more than half, probably just give up before they even start if they don't get the proper guiding and help from someone, which is mostly has to be like from someone to talk to who can talk you through all these with Pancake Swap and PooCoin and all these funny names. And I mean, if it's an easier way, there will be easier to get to mass adoption for sure. And if you can use the coins also for something, or get something from it, or maybe go and shop with it, use it as money, I mean, in a simple way with just a click on an app or something, that is also something that can help to mass adoption. And I think you're on a good way here with Near, because I think you can reach there. I'm not sure. I don't know too much yet about Near, but I'm definitely going to look into it more and try it out myself. I actually tried to start and open a wallet, but I never got to this where I can choose my own name.
Oh, you should be able to
I
do
still
that
had
from
to
the
write
start.
the 12 and
Oh.
I still had to write the 12
the
12 words.
You mean the 12? Oh, yeah, for your passphrase, you might have to do that.
Aha, okay. Yeah. I didn't come further yet because I had to start the same way, but I will try later to come further.
But your point
And put
is
some Near in there.
yeah, your point is actually very important, because I think, as a crypto industry, if we keep having to explain stuff, then it's impossible to reach mass adoption. The real trigger,
yes,
it's the same with internet, right? You're not saying, oh, this is how HTTP work, or this is how SMTP work. No, you just open a browser and then people know how to get on Google. So I think we still have like a ton of work to get to that phase where it's just completely seamless and it's powered by it, but you don't actually see it or feel it, or you don't have to do anything to engage with that.
And people doesn't even have to know what blockchain is, because they just use this app or use this thing to pay their bills or pay for their bread, or
correct,
or play this game and get some money from it, or it's interesting. I think we have to mature more as a as a whole to get mass adoption to happen, but I think we're on our way. So let's see what else we have to tell people about Near. Is there something that you want to talk about? Maybe this Nightshade sharding. sharding. What does that really do, or what does it mean?
Yeah, Nightshade
If you
sharding.
can explain.
Well, I'm not sure I'm going to do justice to it, but this is basically when you think of what is actually sharding and how do you scale a blockchain protocol, and it's actually something that's already used also in traditional web. You don't scale something by just adding more compute power to it, right? You scale something because actually you divide the functionality of what it has to do into several substreams and therefore smaller segments. And so Nightshade sharding is the way sharding is done on the Near protocol. For those who are interested, the white paper is probably a very good source to actually go into more like what does it mean and what is it. And actually, what I would say is that sharding is so it's a way to scale. Think of it like, if you get to a place, instead of having one queue to get to the counter for the post office, then you'd have different queues, right? So if you have 4 queues, you go faster, and if you have 100 queues, then you can actually go even faster and therefore scale even more. But the technology, what's interesting in actually, it's not the technology, but it's the algorithm, is that actually keeping a network secure by adding more shards is actually very difficult. And what I would add also is that when we look at Ethereum and the journey Ethereum is on actually also becoming, proof of stake and getting on to, from one shard to several shards and so on and so forth, the journey Ethereum is going to get on is actually the journey that Near has already been on, right? So we've already built all the things that, probably will still take, a couple of years to Ethereum to get to, but that's in essence, what sharding means, and Nightshade sharding is just the naming for how it's been done on the Near protocol.
To make it faster and better than other
More scalable,
blockchains,
yeah, and
right?
really scalable, because
more scalable.
Yeah, in our industry the key thing is, and because if it's not scalable, then it's a couple of problems, right? If it's not scalable, then you can't put hundreds of millions of users on it, but also if
mass adoption can't happen.
Mass adoption can't happen. And then also, like, very relevant to today, but if you don't have something scalable that doesn't use like a ton of electricity, then it's also not going to work, because actually we need stuff that is carbon neutral, uses as little energy as possible, and so this whole idea of scalability is extremely important for mass adoption, but also just for any technology built today, right? If you do something that's going to eat up the energy consumption of a small country, then it definitely won't get to mass adoption.
Yeah, that's true. So before we move on, do you have somewhere else to be? Do you have an appointment somewhere? Because we are up to an hour now.
Well,
I don't want to keep you.
I have a kid to feed. I have a little boy to feed, so that's the only thing. So I can keep going for maybe a few more minutes, but then after that I'll have to go
till he screams for hunger. No, because I wanted to talk about a little bit about the coin also, the token, the Near token, what it's used for so far, and what it's going to be able to do in the future, maybe, or how it's beneficial for me as a holder to have it. We talked about staking, but is there something else that?
Yeah, well, so yeah, I mean, different things. So definitely, staking, but also, like, for example, if you want to participate, let's call it in the Near economy, right? So we talked about some of our DAOs earlier, but if you actually want to participate in those DAOs, if you want to vote in those DAOs, if you actually want also to start, for example, there is a bunch of gaming applications that exist on Near. So all of those are actually use cases. So I think by what is it, owning a coin in a crypto ecosystem in general means actually participating and becoming a participant, an active participant into that economy and into that community, right? So and then that's also the thing on the Near protocol. You have not only, for example, the Near token, but another example is, like, for example, the Sweat token. So if you participate in the Sweat app, you will actually have Sweat tokens that are built on the Near protocol and the Near technology, and therefore those underlying, they use some Near tokens for actually securing and having transactions happen in the wallet. But you as a user, you'll have actually sweat tokens, right? So that those are a
I've
couple
heard
of.
about that, sweat tokens. Yeah.
Yeah, Sweat is it's an app. You basically you walk and it's an app to incentivize you
Yeah. Walk and
to
earn.
exactly you walk and earn. Right, we see a lot of that, like learn and earn. So, for example, there's also another.
Yeah.
I think that might be very relevant for this group actually. Learn Near Club is a platform on which you can actually get reward for learning more about how Near works. And so actually that might be a way for folks who are here to get their first Near tokens is to go on Learn Near Club and actually start participating and understand more what happens. And as you get and complete tasks, then you get rewarded with tokens.
Mm-hmm. And also, I feel that we haven't spoken too much about the Near Foundation, and you are the CEO, so it would be nice to hear even more from you. Maybe what's going to happen there? What is the? I mean, you're going to help obviously to bring 10,000 users, but what else is the foundation there for to do, or in the future? What's your goals for
Yeah,
this year or beyond?
and so for so the role of the foundation, and I think that's what is also very interesting, in particular for folks who come from more traditional or Web2 businesses, that the role, for example, of the Near Foundation is not to become like the biggest entity or the biggest structure that is out there. It's actually the opposite. It's how can we make ourselves redundant and almost to the point where we
Mm-hmm.
are needed for very, very few things. And so if I fast forward, and you asked that earlier, like, in 3 to 5 years, what does, near ecosystem look like? But if I fast forward and I think just of the foundation, in 3 to 5 years, it's actually, a bare bone team that once a year puts together an amazing nearcon event, because that's actually the place where you can rally the entire ecosystem, and having a
Mm-hmm.
foundation do that is actually very helpful. It's a place where we still like for portray and help when there is conflicts that arise, or when there is need for further governance or decentralization. That's definitely that, and that's the structure that it takes, right? So it's where, when I look at where it is today, there's still a lot of things that the foundation does that we shouldn't be doing, but the challenge is always, when is a community ready to take it on? And if no one is doing it, but then it's actually a bottleneck for the rest, then you have to have someone do it, right? And this balance is constantly of, well, the kitchen and chicken and egg situation is that if we don't do it, but it's needed, then it's actually going to prevent the ecosystem from growing. But if we do it, then it's also not incentivizing anyone else to actually pick it up, right? So it's this constant balance. But over time and long term, the way we think is actually more, I think the structure, for example, of the Ethereum Foundation and where they're at today is a good model for the size of the team and also the mandate and what they do.
But I mean, it's still small right now with a few people who are very active and deciding things. What if it's like 10 million people who want to decide this?
Yeah, well, good question.
Isn't that going to be
Well, good.
different or hard?
Well, but good question. So, well, we go back then to like what's an autonomous decentralized ecosystem, right? Because imagine a place where, yes, you have 10 million users and participants, and maybe some of these users and participants are just like actively using one of the product or the project that is actually being built on the ecosystem. But maybe some others actually
Mm-hmm.
want to be actively, shaping the governance of the ecosystem and taking active part in it. So I think it all depends. But even even today, there's only a very small amount of things that actually are really decided by the foundation. Like there is so many things that are decided anywhere, everywhere, all the time, constantly by participants. We have so many projects that have raised actually over $20 million. Those projects are completely, they're on their own. They can, they are independent entities and structure, and therefore they have their own destiny in their hands, right? Yes, they're built on Near, and therefore they're active ecosystem participants, but they're, they're deciding
They have their whole,
exactly, they
yeah.
have their own journey, right? So, I think we're already in that situation today. Now, if you expand that, I think the models that are interesting is actually what is good decentralized governance, right? And how do you have an ecosystem follow, rules or engage with each other, and what does that mean? And so yeah, we have an experiment at the moment called the Near Digital Collective that is actually spearheading, what would a collective governance look like, and how people would participate, and who can vote on things, and so on and so forth. So we're also experimenting with
But
that.
don't you think that every project will always need their spokesperson, and who's going to choose who is going to do that? I mean, you are now the CEO of the foundation, so it's going to be you, or maybe someone that you point at, to do it, who has
Ha,
the
great.
ability
But
and
so the good question, right? And so that's the other challenge. Like,
yeah.
why do we, I think we're still in, but we need to think of that differently, because, I'm a spokesperson for the foundation, and obviously because the foundation is part of the Near ecosystem, my interest is to learn and know a lot about the foundation. But
Mm-hmm.
obviously, Ilya, who is the co-founder, is a phenomenal spokesperson, within the ecosystem, and to continuously evangelize. And we have, like, the CEOs of our projects, top projects, are also, like, evangelists, and the way they will speak about Near might be, different. And so I think that's also the challenge, right? Do you need one voice, one story, or actually how do you actually,
Mm-hmm.
portray all those things that come together as a collective? So I think, that's part of broader crypto things to further define, right? But I don't, yeah,
I mean, yeah, we want to be DeFi, right? And that means no
yeah,
one is in charge. Everyone
exactly.
is in charge. But that's also very
It
difficult because
is. Yeah.
which company without a CEO or someone in charge are successful, really? You need some guidance, or like a country, they choose their president, or we have a king, or
Well,
something
but
that
okay, I'll challenge that.
helps.
I'll give you a good example. So I'm currently in Switzerland, right? And I think Switzerland is
Hmm.
actually a really interesting model, because if I were to ask you
Oh, yes.
who's the president of Switzerland, you don't, we don't think that way, because
No, I don't
actually,
know.
yeah, exactly. In Switzerland, it's a confederation of cantons, and within every canton, you
Yes.
actually have representatives, and then do representatives, and then you have, like, and there is different rotating seats and so on. And I'm like, well, so some
And you vote on every
yeah, on everything.
a difficult question, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I've heard
people,
that. I think it's a great
yeah,
idea.
and people participate, right? So, the point is, sometimes I think, and we are very much in an era and in a society where people look up for, like, what's the voice. And but again, if you want to
Hmm.
be, especially when we think about technology, I think that can be dangerous, and actually we've seen that be dangerous. And so I think, yes, there is a natural tendency, and it might be important, in particular at the early stages of a project. But honestly, the way I think about myself, for example, is like, how can I, also remove myself, right? And it's, if I'm too much needed, then that's obviously, it's a problem. And so it's this constant balance. But yeah, I think it's a very good question, because
Yeah.
it's not an easy balance.
It's a very interesting question to just, I mean, also to see how it's going to be, because it's very new. But as you said, and now I remember that Switzerland is like a country with a DAO
Yeah, it is.
already, kind of.
It is
So
indeed.
it's a very good example to look at, I think.
Yeah,
So it can be done.
exactly.
It's not impossible. And now you gave me more hope actually than I had before. So yeah, go Switzerland. Great. And Marieke, it's lovely to speak with you. I know that you want to go and feed your son soon, but it's like maybe you can come back and we can speak more about this, because now it was not only about Near, it's like more big.
Uh,
But Near is also thinking big, so I think it's fitting to talk about these
yeah, well,
main questions also for the industry, for the
yeah, I'm
whole.
I'm I'm fascinated by those very, big questions. And actually, I think we all have a duty, and it's very important that we think that way, because sometimes, we think very much like, oh, that project, and is it a good project? Am I getting a return on investment? And one thing I try to say a lot is like, okay, think of the impact, right? Because when, as technologists and as people who participate in an industry like crypto and Web3, we have in our hands very powerful tools. And it's a duty to look at what the world needs, and actually it's a duty to think through the impact of our actions. But as you've mentioned, I need to go feed my son before I get
the future is near.
The future.
So are you going to feed him pizza, or what is he
I
gonna
don't know.
have?
I'll see.
Because I used to ask this question also, if you like pizza with pineapple or not. This is like the crypto pizza.
Oh no, yeah, I'm French, so I'm sorry, but I love cheese, and I'm not very pizza with pineapple is very not French, or very not European.
So have you tried tarte flambé?
Oh yes, it's very good.
Oh, that's a great one. I love that. All right, Marieke, I will give you the floor for a closing statement also, if you want to like address something that we missed that's important, or
Yeah, well, I would say first,
whatever you want to say.
Well, I would say thank you so much to everyone who tuned in to listen. I would also say a huge thank you to you, Mary, for the questions, which I thought were very thoughtful and super interesting. So thank you for that. If you want to learn more about Near, you can find us on near.org or at nearprotocol. And I would leave everybody with the future is near.
The future is near. And just one quick question. Someone wanted to know, is this con, what did you call it again? Nearcon.
Yeah, nearcoin.
Is it always in Portugal?
No, so we are
every year.
Well, it's every year, and we are at the moment debating and thinking where it should be, and we are also thinking of actually sharding nearcon, because we need to scale our event, and so we were also thinking maybe we'll have different branches on continents, and then a mega event somewhere. So I would say stay tuned. We're planning all that, and more to come very soon. But by the way, if some of you are going to be at East Denver, we will have a whole Near Day, which is a mini NearCon, the day before East Denver, on the premises of East Denver. And so if some of you are going to be there, would love to see you there. And yeah, we'll be there.
And if you want to buy nearcoin, this is not financial advice, but I think you are on all the big block exchanges, right?
Yeah, correct. But same here, like not financial advice. So do your own research, and leaving you guys to that.
But if you want to buy it, you can buy it everywhere. So if someone in here now wants to be a partner with you or go into partnership, how does that work?
Yes, so if you have,
because
we have
you haven't post about that.
Yeah, we have a Telegram channel, so at near_onboarding. If you actually want to partner with us, that's the best way to get in touch.
Okay, I want to partner with you now.
Awesome.
So let's keep in touch, Marieke, and I hope your son gets something good to eat.
Perfect.
And yeah.
Thank you
so much for coming. It was really amazing having you on here.
Thank you so much for the invite. Thank you, guys. Bye.